One of the most popular arguments that I've encountered and I continue to encounter, and I'm sure that many of us have found ourselves in those situations, one directly or indirectly, is the argument of climate change, global warming. Is it a myth? Is it a reality? And my response usually is to tell people to consider, to take a pause and look at it from a personal level. If you're from the tropics, if you're in the tropics, what is the weather like? Is it hotter now than it was 10 years ago, or was 10 years ago hotter? Compared to last year, compared to 2 years before, what is the difference in weather at this point in time, wherever you are, compared to the previous years? If you're in the colder regions, I'll ask you to compare your winters, to compare your summers. Are they as hot or are they as cold as they used to be? And I want you to answer yourself. Now, I could provide you the data, or you could even research yourself and find the data online. But I want you to sort of just ignore the research at this point in time, and then just carry out an exercise yourself. Pause and think and reflect. Just carry out a reflection exercise yourself and ask yourself, wow, is it colder? Is it hotter? What has changed? And I would say on that personal level, you would find the answer to the questions yourself. And that's usually how I like to respond to people whenever they say these things. And for me, I think my first experience with an extreme weather event, I think my first conscious experience of an extreme weather event was in 2012, where I was at the time in the Niger Delta area of Nigeria, and there was an intense flood. Obviously, Niger Delta area is the area that is directly bordering on the Atlantic. And what it means is that all the runoff from other parts of the country had flowed down. And this meant for a whole month, I think the whole of October 2012 and even some part of November 2012, if memory serves me right, there was certain parts of the country were cut off from other parts of the country because the highways were flooded. And this meant that people could not move. I think at the time I was trying to drive from Yenagoa to Port Harcourt, and I could not. For close to a month, I could not until the floods were down. People who did move had to get into um, very big vehicles, and even then, many of them did not succeed. But, anyways, I digress. Where I'm going to is that if you go back and if you pause and think and reflect, you see that you've experienced or you've seen people's experience of extreme weather events over the last 10, 20 years. And it has been reoccurring every year, year on year, in different parts of the world. We have flooding, we have extreme weather events, and people are displaced from their homes. It's now become an annual thing. Now, the point to the whole this whole concept or this entire conversation is that what we are experiencing are the consequences of our actions as human beings. And some people may argue that the flooding which I've just referred to occurred as a consequence of a dam being opened in Cameroon or something like that. And my response to them is usually, well, hadn't the dam been opened in the past before? And if so, is it a case of the dam being opened every year, being so that some water can be let out? Is that the case? That's my usually my question. Is that what has happened? And because prior to 2012, that incident had not occurred in that magnitude. Now, what this has also meant is, yes, obviously, the infrastructure had been replaced and it has been reconstructed in such a manner that the flooding could no longer cut off things like the East-West Road completely. But the effect is still felt in communities, even in cities, in towns. Some people are displaced every year from their homes, and then they return when the water is dry. This is a fundamental problem, and the simple solution for me, and obviously science backs it up, is for us to rethink how we live, how we operate. We need to rethink how we consume, how we make, how we procure, how we dispose. If we consume less, if we procure less and consume less, it means we dispose less. If we dispose less, it means we landfill less, it means we incinerate less. And if we do all these things less, it means we emit fewer harmful substances into the environment. Some people have also argued that, well, we're experiencing all these things because people have blocked, and I'm referring to the Niger Delta, for instance. People are building on or have blocked natural drainage systems. And my response to that is that, well, you're still feeding into my point, which is that human activity is the cause of much of what we're experiencing. And this is not just my point, it's a scientifically backed point. And then while governments can do beautiful things to address it on a policy level, on an enforcement level, we have a responsibility as individuals to become environmental champions so that our children can benefit from the resources that we have benefited from and those that have come before us have benefited from. Now, this means at the individual level, at the family level, at the community level, we need to work together. We need to start thinking about how we dispose, how we use. Do we keep things in circulation for longer? Or do we simply buy things or replace things at the slightest semblance of damage? Do we have a repair culture? Do we have a reuse culture? Because circularity and carbon emissions are very close. I promise not to use those language. But anyways, where I'm going with this is that if we change our behavior, we are bound to see the effects sooner than later. If we stop consuming in the way that we consume, if we stop transporting, or if we evolve in how we transport goods, in how we get to where we want to go to, if we use more environmentally friendly mediums of transportation, what happens is that we begin to see the effects, the cascading effects in our communities. If we keep things in circulation for longer, we begin to see the cascading effects. And importantly, we begin to have more money in our pockets. Because if we buy less and consume less and use more of what we already have, it means we will have more money in our pockets, thereby also addressing the cost of living crisis that seems to affect everyone all over the globe. So it's just something that I want us to ponder on an individual level. I'm not speaking from a policy level or a highly framed academic level. I'm speaking as an individual who has looked at these things and has experienced these things personally and has also seen the effect of implementing these little behavior changes on a granular family level. So ask yourself, do you adequately sort your waste? Do you keep things in use for longer? Um, do you use more environmental modes of transportation? Do you consolidate your purchases, or do you purchase 10 things in 10 days and want them to be delivered in one day delivery? These are just some questions you could ask yourself. And then you could even research to see how these little behavior changes can positively affect your local community. Community benefits are the things we want to push for. So, anyways, I think I've spoken for longer than I planned to. It's just something to ponder on and then begin to see how you can adopt. But first and foremost, carry out that experiment. Ask yourself, in the last 10 years, what has changed in my locality with regards to the environment? And then, if you were a doubter, you may have your answer.